next game on our list, Steelers and Jets. Steelers win 34-32. Chris Boswell hits a game winner, and Mike Tomlin calls him a serial killer. And then Aaron Rodgers comes out and says that he was happy to beat everyone involved with the Jets. I thought that was something that, if you're Aaron, say what you really want to say, which is that you left that building loving almost everybody and having almost everybody love you. You hate the owner, and you're supposed to be the provocateur and the guy who's not afraid to say the thing that nobody's saying. Just be like F. Woody Johnson. That guy tried to bench me like 6 times, and I came up and beat his ass in the
It's
first.
funny because he still has a good relationship with Saleh. He still has a good relationship
with everybody.
Yeah, he's still you saw him after the it was like a receiving line after the game for him there, with all the guys who were coming up to him. Garrett Wilson, that might be a little icier. But everybody else, I think there was a strong relationship there. So yeah, I thought that you're right. Just come out and say it. Right? Just come out and say it. But they didn't do a bad job replacing him either.
No, and I think that's where I want to start in this. So when you heard, and I think that we both talked to coaches around the league, that what Tanner Engstrom wanted to do here was create an explosive first offense and really push the ball down the field. And when you got Fields, my initial thought was, I think this is going to be hard to do.
Yep.
Because I'm not sure. And it wasn't that I wasn't so sure of him. I've always been a Fields defender, and I feel like you could see that. And you could see it at the end in Chicago, and then he got the rug ripped out from under him. You could see it in Pittsburgh, and then for some reason they just had to start Russell Wilson, and they had to play him for all those games last year. But that Garrett Wilson touchdown, I'm standing on my chair being like, hell yeah. Like, that's the player that I saw. That's the player who I thought they could have in Justin Fields. And I give Tanner Engstrom a lot of credit. This is a lot of work. This offense needed to come in and get ripped out from the wires. And I mean, Brees Hall had 107 rushing yards. The Jets had 182 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. Justin Fields had another 212 and a touchdown. Garrett Wilson gets 95. Like, everything about this game is where you wanted it to be. Everything.
I think, I can think we can relate this a little bit to Sam Darnold, where when Sam Darnold first came into the league, he had he wound up with coaches that wanted to play him a certain way that maybe wasn't right for him. And, Adam Gase had been with Peyton Manning, so his offense had a lot of volume, was very complex, and that wasn't what Sam was. And so, I think when he got with first Ben McAdoo, and then after that, Kyle Shanahan, and then Kevin O'Connell, there was a real emphasis on getting him playing fast and leaning into what he was good at. And eventually you brought the best out in him. Anybody who watched Justin Fields play at Ohio State would tell you he's a good passer. Yeah, and I know that sounds crazy. Like, a lot of people think that sounds crazy based on what's happened his first 5 years in the NFL, but there are so many high level throws you could pick out that he made at Ohio State. Part of it was he didn't see it fast enough. And a part of that was because the way he was developed at Ohio State, he was throwing to Chris Olave and to Jackson Smith and Jigba and to Garrett Wilson. And 9 times out of 10, the play worked exactly the way they drew it up. And so he didn't have to develop that part of his game. He didn't see it very fast to begin with, and he hadn't have to develop that when he was in college. And then in the pros, he gets there and they're asking him to see it fast in some of these offenses, and he couldn't do it yet. And he got all kind of discombobulated. So I would compare what he had last year with Arthur Smith in Pittsburgh to what Sam Darnold had with Ben McAdoo and with Kyle Shanahan, where he had a chance to sit back and evaluate where he was and get with a coordinator who was going to build something for him. And there were a lot of people in Pittsburgh last year, and I would tell you this point blank. There were a lot of people in Pittsburgh last year that wanted Justin Fields playing.
Yes.
Down the stretch of the year. And that was a Mike Tomlin decision not to go with Fields.
Right.
And I can just tell you there were people on the Pittsburgh sideline yesterday that were not surprised in the least by what they saw from Justin Fields. And that should tell you what you need to know, right? The guys who had him in the building with him, players, coaches, guys who are with him, aren't surprised at all that he did this. In fact, it's sort of like like this is what we were talking about at the end of last year. I have to tell you about this game-changing product I used before a night out with drinks. It's called Pre-Alcohol. ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink is the world's first genetically engineered probiotic. It was invented by PhD scientists to tackle rough mornings after drinking. Here's how it works. When you drink, alcohol gets converted into a toxic byproduct in the gut. It's a buildup of this byproduct, not dehydration, that's to blame for rough days after drinking. Pre-alcohol produces an enzyme to break this byproduct down. Just remember to make pre-alcohol your first drink of the night, drink responsibly, and you'll feel your best tomorrow. I was a bit on the fence about it, but I'm telling you, it works. Fall is right around the corner, so that means it's time to raise a glass to your favorite team, whether you are tailgating, enjoying a college game day, or watching Sunday's action on that fancy new TV. Don't forget ZBiotics Pre-Alcohol Probiotic Drink. Drink a pre-alcohol before drinking and enjoy great days after celebrating all season long. Go to zbiotics.com/MMQB to learn more and get 15% off your first order when you use MMQB at checkout. ZBiotics is backed with 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. Remember to head to zbiotics.com/MMQB and use the code MMQB at checkout for 15% off. I'm not saying you can be a superstar, but I always use the example of Alex Smith in Kansas City. God, this is the second time Alex Smith in Kansas City's come up. But like Alex Smith in Kansas City was a great reclamation was the result of in San Francisco, he finally got with the right coaches at the end. The clock kind of ran out on him there. And then he got in a good situation in Kansas City where they let him be himself and they build an offense for him. And he wound up buying them time to find Patrick Mahomes.
Yep.
Is it impossible that Justin Fields could be that for Aaron Glenn and the Jets?
The one thing,
at the very least, he can buy them time to find the next guy.
Yeah, I think so too. And that's a great contract. That's the other thing. Like the finances on that deal, given what other people paid for quarterbacks this offseason and in previous off seasons. I mean,
yeah, and there are more examples of it too. Like Baker's a good example of it. Like there's just, I don't know. And the way he affects the run game too. I mean, they ran for 182. Breece Hall looked great. I think eventually, and we've talked about Braylon Allen. I think Braylon Allen's going to be a big factor as the season goes on. Like
I do too. That
run game, when you've got to deal with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, while you also have to account for Justin Fields in the run game,
they're going to be a tough team.
Problem.
They're going to be tough. I totally agree.
As for the Steelers, because we probably should get to them because they won the game really quick.
Yeah. Here we go. 4 touchdowns from Aaron Rodgers. And guess what? I mean, here's the big thing for me. And I want to make sure that I have the stat correct because 6 of 8 in play action for 75 yards and 3 touchdowns. The most, tied for the most touchdowns on play action in a game of Aaron Rodgers' since 2016. This is the Matt LaFleur offense that made you a back-to-back MVP, and we're doing it. He's listening again. He's going to go out on a high note. I'm so excited for Aaron Rodgers.
Hey, you know what I thought was interesting? 3 of the 4 touchdown passes were from under center on movement.
Yep.
And I think there's an element there for Aaron of don't tell me I can't do this anymore. You know what I mean? Like, don't tell me I can't move anymore. Because I think we'd all agree he can still throw it. Like no one, you'd have to be a moron not to think that he can still throw it with anybody. But the movement plays, scoring the movement plays, I think is a really important nuance to his performance. Here's the other thing, Connor, before we wrap up on this one. I think like the impact that the new guys had and sort of a belief and an urgency, and this is a subtle thing, but like an urgency to the way they're playing to get what they got from some of the new guys. DK Metcalf making the catch on his back to set up the field goal, right? The Boswell field goal to win.
His yards after the catch were phenomenal in this game.
Right. And then Jalen Ramsey coming through like a rocket on the 4th down. And that throw that was That throw was there. Garrett Wilson was in the right spot. Like Jalen Ramsey just made a better play, you know? So to get that from guys that you just brought in, I just think there's like a little bit of there's a spark and an urgency. And I think that was the whole idea in signing Aaron Rodgers. It's like, we've been pretty good for a long time, but we haven't been great in a long time. You know what I mean? And I think you see like a little bit of a spark and an urgency with these guys who are win now players coming in, even in week one. That was, I think, probably pretty good for everybody on that Pittsburgh staff to see.